Welcome everyone to Defender for Cloud in the Field. In today's episode, we have a very special guest that brings tons of experience in the security field. He has been at Microsoft for 17 plus years, and currently he leads the CXC organization, customer experience organization, in the areas of network security and Defender for Cloud. Mekonnen Kassa, thank you very much for being on today.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Thank you for doing this, for everything that you're doing for Microsoft, for our products, and for bringing people to actually share knowledge and experience with our customers and security professionals. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. It brings a lot of different perspective, and I'm looking forward for this episode. So, I would like to start this conversation and talking to you about a subject that I know that you are very passionate. You've been talking about this for a long time. You wrote papers, deliver tons of EBCs for CISOs, which is around zero trust. And let's start asking what it is and why it's so important to use zero trust strategy nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So when you look at the technology industry and how it was operating and how it is operating, things have changed drastically, Yuri, because right now, the volume of data and interaction in the technology industry has dramatically increased. The velocity, the speed on how things move has also increased. And the variety of the work that we do has also changed, right? Because of the pandemic, as you know, working remotely has also become normal. So all these situations have introduced a different modus operandi, if you will, right? Some like to say we no longer operate within that pristine perimeter environment. It's a perimeterless. There is just all kinds of activities that are going on. So zero trust says, okay, the way we used to do it can no longer be the case we continue to do it. Because there needs to be a shift in mindset to deal with the current operating environment. Because if you remember back in the days, if you have a user and password, you're trusted and you're in. And then, if remember, people used to have persistent admin access, right? You are an admin, you log in, you just,
exactly.
Stay there. Yep. That trustful mentality is no longer the case. Zero trust is really the way I look at it. It's about a shift in mentality, a shift in mindset. The way we used to do it, the way we used to trust, the way we used to give access is no longer the case. So let's shift our mindset and trust no one. And then what does that mean? That means we need to explicitly verify the user. No, user ID and password is no longer enough. We need to do more to validate and verify the user. And once the user is in, we need to give them the least access, not the admin access, all access. Just give them a least privilege that they need to do the job. And then the third one, the most important one, is really assume breach. That's really what I'm talking about when I talk about shifting mindset. You no longer have to trust anyone. You have to assume your environment is already breached. Adversaries are already in your environment, and you have to operate with that mindset. So those are the three zero trust principles.
And excellent points, Mekonnen. I couldn't agree more with your perspective on that. Now, when we look at the hybrid scenario that we have with on-prem, multi-cloud, and having to think about cloud security, what are the challenges in your perspective?
Well, we talked about what it is, right? You have all these situations, all these users, all these customers, all these partners, all your employees, right? All this stuff is happening. And now as a business, you have legacy environment in your on-prem environment. And for scale, speed to market, and all these advantages, you have moved to a cloud environment. And then to mitigate some of your risks, and because one functionality is available not here, not there, you find yourself operating in this legacy environment on-prem and then multi-cloud environment. What that means is you have assets all over the place. You have systems all over the place that are being accessed. So now, when you try to implement security, you may run into different vendors, different tools. That works here, that doesn't work there. And before you know it, you've got all kinds of tools that you need to use. And then your org structure also comes into play because you have security people, you have financial people, you have these people who have different responsibilities, who have different way of doing things, and you need to make sure that is being controlled. But how it's controlled in one cloud environment, how it's controlled in the on-prem, how it's controlled somewhere else is different. So as an enterprise, when you try to think about securing your ecosystem, you have to deal with disparate tools, sometimes who don't work together, and you have to navigate different portals and what have you. And then you have your organizational structure that introduces different types of responsibilities because of regulations or compliance and this and that. So the disparity of tools is introduced by these different ecosystems where you have assets, and then your org structure. All these things really may increase the complexity of what you have to do when you think about securing all of this in one way or another.
Yeah, it's very challenging indeed, and that really goes to the next point that I want to talk about, because I know you've been working this on this field actively nowadays. One of the things that can help is bringing visibility and control to this multi-cloud. So how you perceive the Defender for Cloud role in helping the zero trust strategy on this multi-cloud hybrid environment?
Yeah, so now let's click down a little bit, right? So when we talk about zero trust security, we talked about what it is and what is that and all that. But now, if you click down, what are we really talking about? When you look at the technology stack, right? So usually zero trust security across the stack, you're talking about identity. Who are really the human, non-human system application identities that you're dealing with, that you need to manage? Because not only human accounts, systems, access systems, so you have managed accounts. How do you manage that, right? And then you have devices that people use or these accounts use. And then these users, through these devices, access applications, right? So you have identity layer, devices layer, and application layer. Right? From application layer, then you have to have this infrastructure, whether it's a database, whether it's storage, whether it's a web server or what have you, this infrastructure layer that actually gives you access to data or stored data, right? And then, of course, you have the networking layer. So when you talk about zero trust security, you're talking about these 6 layers, right? Identity, devices, applications, data, infrastructure, and network layer. But you and I know nowadays the code is actually being introduced. So if you look at most of these zero trust infrastructure layers, they don't really talk about code, because now this shifting left and securing code is becoming a new phenomenon, and I'm sure someone will update that. But now, when you look at one of the layers, the most important, the important layers is infrastructure. So on this infrastructure, you have your servers, your databases, your storages, where, to be honest with you, what are we really trying to secure? At the end of the day, we're trying to secure data, right? Data is probably the most valuable asset enterprises are trying to secure. And where is that data? It's on the infrastructure layer. So tools like Microsoft Defender for Cloud are very critical, because now they can give you visibility on the vulnerabilities of these infrastructures, whether it's a database or storage or what have you. What kind of vulnerabilities do exist at that layer? And what is it that I need to do to minimize risk on that layer? And then, as you know, the NIST framework talks about identifying. right? The first thing that helps you to do is identify, what do I have? What does it look like? And then you can go look at the alerts that get generated because there is a certain vulnerability. A certain threat that is detected. Microsoft Defender for Cloud, as you know, tries to look at some of the activities that are happening on the infrastructure layer and tries to alert you and go as far as showing you the techniques and the tools that may be used in that layer and what you need to do to mitigate that. So that's how important a security tool like Microsoft Defender for Cloud is, to give you visibility about your security posture, to inform you about malicious activities that are going on in that layer, and not only do it for Azure, but as you know, we also do it for multi-cloud in AWS and GCP, and even on-prem. Though it is very limited, we also do the same kind of posture and threat assessment, threat protection on on-prem assets as well. That's how it's critical for zero trust security.
Yeah, Defender for Cloud definitely plays a great role. Thanks for bringing clarity on that. But in addition to Defender for Cloud CXC, you also lead the Azure Network Security CXC team. So let's switch gears a little bit to talk about Zero Trust on the network level, since you also talk about this a little bit already. What would be some of the network security controls that we have available in Azure that can help with Zero Trust?
Yeah. So I've already, when we talked about the stack, right, we talked about network security being part of that zero trust framework layer. So what happens in network? The network is usually traffic, right, from point A to point B. So you've got something going from point A to point B, and there is something being extracted or delivered, right? So when you're in cloud, you can definitely use what we like to call network security groups to say, okay, this source can only be talking to this destination and vice versa. So you can talk about source and destination, you can talk about allowed protocols and on what ports. So you can do that, and that you can definitely do easy for free. Also, you can use virtual networks and subnets to kind of segregate your assets. But most important, however, when you start talking about zero trust security, you need tools like the Azure firewall, the virtual appliance firewall that you have. Tools like that will allow you actually to create policies across your environment. They allow you to actually inspect traffic to see what is this traffic, what is the inspect packets. I mean, what does this packet look like? What does it have, and what is it trying to do? Most importantly, however, when you talk about zero trust and network security layer, you will hear the word microsegmentation a lot. What microsegmentation talks about is really how can you identify systems that are related with each other, dependent with each other, and then segregate them, control access and security around that. As you know, if you have one system right now, it may be talking to all kinds of systems, upstream systems, downstream systems, all kinds of things that may be happening around that system because of the nature of the complexities of the systems that we have built. It is going to be very difficult now to know what do you allow, what do you prevent, and how do you allow. So tools like network security, for now, I think Microsoft is probably partnering with some company called Illumio that actually learns. It learns all this traffic that's happening around the system and tells you the sources and the destinations of these other systems that are coming and interacting with the system, and allows you to microsegment that at a virtual layer, right? So those are really the kind of things that you can do at the network layer, at least to get started with network security.
Awesome. This is a very important point, and there are a lot of capabilities out of the box that customers can find in Azure Network Security. So you present a lot, many sessions around Zero Trust, and one thing that I've noticed watching some of your sections is that you always talk about visibility and analytics as part of this narrative. So can you give some examples of what visibility and analytics means to Zero Trust and what we have available for that?
Yeah. So nowadays you hear from the security industry words like observability, right? So what you're talking about is, of course, we've got systems, they've got log files, there is all kinds of metrics, there is all kinds of information coming out of the systems. But how can you actually bring it together in such a way that you sift through the noise and get valuable action items so that you can take actions as quickly as possible or proactive actions so that you can mitigate attacks, mitigate damage, or in the unfortunate event that something has happened, how do you recover? So this is where tools like SIEM and SOAR teams, like Microsoft Sentinel, come into play, right? Because I remember what I said earlier. You've got all these different systems doing all kinds of things out here somewhere on the infrastructure layer, at the identity layer, and what have you. How can you bring all these alerts, all these log files, all these informations from all these systems that are being logged or raised and what have you into an environment where you can actually automate action? How can you automate action to respond? How can you automate action to recover? How can you even automate the way you see things, right? Because one of the biggest problems that we have in security industry right now is fatigue. There is just alert fatigue. There is just all kinds of alerts coming from this. By the way, Microsoft deals with over 60 trillion. That's T with trillion. 60 trillion signals in 24 hours. Every day, Microsoft deals with 60 trillion signals every day. Yeah. So you can imagine what kind of human can handle that, right? Of course, tools like ChatGPT may be helpful in that regard, but that's where observability, the ability to have visibility and to actually get valuable information out of these systems and take action is going to be very important. And tools like Sentinel or other third-party tools are going to be valuable to help our customers do that. Because at the end of the day, you got to have visibility. And then based on that visibility and information, you need to be able to take action, either to proactively prevent or to respond or to recover.
That's outstanding and definitely help us to close the loop. And we could spend hours talking about Zero Trust, Mekonnen. Thank you very much for bringing so good insights, different perspective, connecting the dots. I truly appreciate your time. Any final consideration for our customer when it comes to Zero Trust?
Well, that's good. It is overwhelming. There is just no question about it. It is overwhelming, and people just get overwhelmed, and I get overwhelmed myself. And then how do you get started is really the question that comes up. You just have to think about it and say, what's my risk appetite? Right? What's most valuable thing for me? For example, I usually talk about this as an analogy when I do EBC, right? You've got the most valuable stuff at home, maybe a jewelry that you bought for your loved one, right? Versus you've got kids' toys, plastic toys, right? Those plastic toys may be laying around in the yard and you don't care about it. But if you have some very valuable jewelry that you have for your loved one, where is it? It may be in the house, in the bedroom, maybe in the closet, maybe in a safe, maybe in a safe. And then when you look at the doors in the closet or the bedroom, the door may have all kinds of keys, right? 1, 2, 3, right? You can just go all out on this, right? Or you can probably do nothing. But really, that's where you have to do really what's really most valuable asset that I have and how much do I want to protect it? Because you don't want to pivot, overprotect or not protect. You just have to find the sweet spot. So that's really something that enterprises need to do first. Identify what's most valuable and what's the risk appetite and how much protection do you want to do. Because if you do more protection, it adversely impacts productivity, right? So that's what you need to do. And then the second thing, the most important thing that I talk about is zero trust is a journey. It's not really something that you can go and say A, B, C, check, 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 and say, I'm done. I'm zero trust. No, it's really a journey. You get started with something and iterate on it over time and continue to improve because the adversary tools and tactics are evolving anyway. So you have to evolve with that. So make sure that you think about it as a journey, as something that you can get started and there is no end to it. It's just an ever evolving activity that you need to undertake on an ongoing basis.
Excellent, Mekonnen. I love this final reflection. I think it brings a lot of ideas to our customers to do things. I'm going to also share the link below for more information about Zero Trust strategy. Thank you very much again for joining the show. I truly appreciate your time.
Oh, I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share, Yuri. I thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, this is a wrap for today's episode. Make sure to subscribe to the Microsoft Security channel. I'm going to put here the AKA link for our playlist. Click on the bell to receive notification when new episodes are uploaded. And stay tuned, we have much more to come.